This episode is just insane of a roller coaster of emotions, a lot of angst, probably a great setup for episode 4. We see Rick. He's a fearful man. He's a broken man. He has probably a few fears. One of the obvious, now that Michonne has found him, she's inside the CRM. Obviously, his fear is that she would get killed and sent away because of her her A status. He's probably fearful that the CRM would break Michonne and she would be no longer, just as the CRM has broken him. Yeah, and he still doesn't know he has a son, so he's obviously thinking of Judith. And in this whole scenario, both parents are in the same place now, so he's thinking of his daughter and he's thinking about what Judith needs. This episode opens with 3 different timelines. We have the first timeline is a flashback to years ago between Rick and Jadis, and they're discussing, basically Rick is pissed off at Jadis for, okay, you saved my life, but now you brought me to this place that is a literal hellhole. I can't even leave to be with my family. And then the second timeline is hours ago from where we ended at the last episode, where Rick is begging Thorne to have Dana stay. And then the other timeline that we run into is the present, the here and now. Where we left off in episode 2 is Jadis is legitimately worried because these two are now together. She knows that them together is a powerful force, and she proceeds to threaten Rick's family. Jadis created some insurance for herself, of course. If they do kill her, they'll be found out. Andrew, as he puts it, he's in purgatory because he can never leave. And so Jadis believes in the long game, and she's pretty determined to do her job. There's an exchange between Rick and Jadis where he just spitting facts. You're a hero with a shit haircut. I love that line. It's just so great because it's everything we're thinking about her haircut right now. I thought it was interesting that there's been this kind of underlying theme, if you will, in the series of sacrifice, of what people do to sacrifice to keep their families and their loved ones safe. The idea that Okafor sacrificed his wife and decided to rid himself of his own family by dropping those bombs. And in the funeral, we see the funeral for Okafor. We see General Beale kind of going into this rant about that very thing, sacrifice, and what this man did and who he was. And so it's kind of interesting because you see the sacrifice that General Beale is talking about is like for the greater good. And then there is this other kind of sacrifice, the one that you make for your loved ones, the one that Rick talked about when he talked about his dad. There's 2 types of sacrifices that are kind of colliding here in the story. And as I was watching it, I was thinking this is going to tie into something with Rick. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous as to where this theme with sacrifice is going to play out throughout the series between Rick and Michonne. We'll see. So obviously we're back in the CRM. Michonne is getting a feel for a rhythm, life after getting captured and brought back. Rick is going to work. Thorne has been promoted. There's this idea of Rick being a Parmacon, both poison and a cure. Thorne gets promoted, command sergeant and major. Basically, she gets the spot of Okafor. And so she's privy to some information that Rick isn't as of yet. She's asked Rick to take over logistics at the Cascadia Forward Operating Base. They're accelerating some sort of schedule for when the whole brass, I guess, of the CRM gets together for a summit. I think that's a hint to maybe something occurring during that time further down, maybe episode 5 or 6. I don't know, but it's interesting that gets mentioned. So Rick's, after that conversation with Thorne, he gets to work. He's planning, he's taking note of disruption charges that are happening in the area. all the planning for you would think us as the audience, we're seeing all this planning happening, and we're thinking, oh, him and Michonne are leaving. But we find out that it's really about him pushing Michonne away and asking her to leave. And she realizes that Rick isn't going with her, and she's pissed. She doesn't, she's pissed. She doesn't want to leave. Right. So I'm sure there's a lot going through her mind. There's a scene where Michonne's walking around town square. This was beautiful, where she sees this artist, and it's the same one that drew her uh, and that helped her find where Rick was. And this artist starts recounting the story of how Rick would come by and ask him to draw her and Judith, and so he looks at her and he says, uh, "He found you," and she kind of looks at him and says, "Now I'm looking for him." And then he says, "Believe a little bit longer," which is a callback to what Nat told her. If you remember, he told her the translation of what was on the phone, the message that was on the phone. And so that was a really neat callback. And you could see it in her eyes that she's, this is, of course, after she realizes that, oh, Rick's not leaving. He's staying. I'm going to stay. And I'm not leaving without him. And there's a lot of things that Michonne doesn't know. She doesn't know that Jadis is around. There's a lot of things she doesn't know. She doesn't know that Jadis is threatening to kill everybody in Alexandria, and Rick's motivated to protect his family, and he the last thing he wants to do is to put them in danger, to put Michonne in danger. But in this episode, Jadis and Michonne lock eyes. And Rick has to quickly walk over to Michonne, and just he's telling her it doesn't matter, and basically it's like, this is why I need you to leave, because we have her here and it's not safe and it's dangerous. So there's a lot of things Michonne doesn't know still in this episode. But she's discouraged. She's in a confusing place. She is thinking, who is this man? How do I find him? He's not Rick. And how do I get him back? And she encounters this artist, and he basically breathes life into her dream, which is really beautiful.
You're the one who drew me.
Yes. Always you and the girl. There was a boy he asked me to draw, but I could never get it right for him.
Carl. His name was Carl.
So we see Rick throughout this episode trying to push Michonne away because he's scared and believes her life is in danger. And there's been, several moments where, Michonne is in danger and her life is in danger, and Thorne is a threat, and Thorne is threatened by Michonne. And she's trying not to usurp authority, but she ends up doing just that. And Rick helps her at one point. They're out doing this, trying to kill the walkers. Man, there's just so much angst, and I love the exchange between Michonne and Rick. And he says to her, everything we have is broken. Also, Rick, never say that to Michonne. Never say everything we have is broken. She refuses to believe that. And I love that there's this confrontation earlier on in the episode between Rick and Michonne, and she snatches his helmet off. It's so fast in anger and says nothing. And he's just talking, and she just walks away. There are moments in the episode where Thorne is for sure wanting to take Michonne out. The love that they have has been described as crazy, and the way this episode ends is a crazy ending for episode. Rick and Michonne are in the helicopter, and she's just staring at him. It's raining, it's storming outside, the helicopter's going. She opens the door and takes Rick, pushes him out of the helicopter, and they both jump out of the helicopter, which is insane. Just kind of insane. And then we see the previews, and the previews, it says, we need a timeout. It's like, mom and dad need a timeout. We need to talk, like really talk, like not this passing notes around, not this, trying to communicate through our eyes, not this like couple second of communication. Like we need to hash this out, and we need to do it now, and we need a timeout. And you see it throughout the episode. Rick is afraid, and it's the weirdest. Such a weird place for him. I think the last time he was there, that infamous night where Negan kills some of our beloved characters, right? And so that's the last time I think we see Rick in such a weird, helpless, broken place. And she's trying to get him back. She found him, but she hasn't found him. She is with him, but she's not with him. By the end of the episode, Rick is still where he's at. He's still broken. He's still afraid, terrified. The man is terrified and wants Michonne to leave. And he's like, even if I have to knock you out and put you in the damn boat myself, you are leaving. And he is so determined for her to not be there. And for good reason. This episode overall was very I was very stressed. I was I was like, yo, and I was ready for it. I was ready for angst. I was ready for pushback. I was ready for Rick not being Rick. I was ready for Michonne fighting him every step of the way. It's like I'm trying to save you, and you're trying to save me, and none of them will give each other an inch. And it's kind of insane. It's kind of crazy. And the way that this episode ends is I think is a great setup for episode 4. I hear episode 4 is hot. So yeah, it's an interesting setup. There was a lot of sexual tension between these two, and we see that and feel that throughout the episode. There's some jealousy sprinkled in there. Michonne is jealous of Thorne. A few videos back, I mentioned this. I said you can't have episode 1 without 2, and you can't have 2 without 1. And I kind of feel that way about 3 and possibly 4, even though I haven't watched 4. You can't have that kind of an episode 4. I'm thinking of 4 here, without what happened with 3. And so, and my hunch is obviously 5 and 6, the penultimate episode, and then the season finale or series finale. We're hoping that we're going to get a second season here, guys. So I do not know how this is going to roll out. I don't know if they're going to end up uh, how escaping. No idea how this is going to roll at the end of the day, but I'm excited to find out. Until next time, you can watch The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. It's a new series now streaming on AMC and AMC Plus.